Want some help?
Oh. You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman.
Welcome to episode number 119 of the Social Hour, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast. I am the host of this here Batman on Film show, and I'm also the founder of Batman on Film, Bill Ramey. And with me is senior BOF contributor Ryan Haas. Ryan, how are you, sir?
I'm good.
You're all Batmaned up, and I'm all Texas Rangers and Dallas Cowboys up. That's okay. Right. I'm just look around me, man. Look here. I'm representing still. So we are here today to talk about or give you a non-spoiler reaction to The Flash, which I saw Monday night here in Dallas at the local press screening. And Ryan, I'll let you saw it last night, but I'll let you describe your viewing situation, where you went and how far you traveled and everything. So how was it?
Well, I can't believe I get to talk to Bill Ramey about a Michael Keaton Batman movie that's new. Yeah. This is crazy. That's cool.
Yes.
So I was getting twitchy, Bill. I was getting nervous. I mean, for the Batman, my expectations I kept tempered the whole time. Everybody's like, aren't you hyped? Aren't you hyped? I'm like, no. I'm like, I just want to see the movie and experience the movie. But for The Flash, it's been a completely different story, because not only has this film been in the works for like 1,000 years through the iterations. Like back here, I've got I think it's the Batman Begins script book or something, and there's some intro from Goyer in it talking about, the next movie's The Flash, and it's going to be like this, and so like this movie's been through development hell for years.
Yeah, that's like almost 20 years ago, so
it's nuts. And so and obviously all the stuff we've had to go through with the DCEU, this is like the end of the DCEU, other than Aquaman, I guess, the next Aquaman. So ever since this movie came out at CinemaCon early, people have just been hyping it up like crazy. And then they've had all these crazy fan screenings. And I wonder if Warner Brothers has been doing all these early screenings as a way to circumvent doing actual like traditional film marketing. Because I'm like, we're like a week out, and there's like, where's Keaton on the talk shows? And I know he's filming Beetlejuice and stuff, but like, where's that stuff? Where's the directors talking?
They've got the WGA strike, so all the talk shows are dark,
Exactly. So I'm like, I feel like I hate saying it, but it feels like we've been robbed of like good content from, because part of this experience that I was looking forward to so much was getting to see people like Keaton talk about coming back as Batman and behind the scenes stuff and all that kind of thing. So it's been a really weird experience. And so all these fan screenings have been happening, and I was just like really getting like, man, everybody and their grandma's seen this movie before me. And I'm like, I want to see it. And so when they unveiled the DC Fan First screenings, I was excited because like for the Batman, they were just basically in any IMAX theater. But for some reason, for The Flash, it was only in a very small handful of theaters, and the closest one to me was in outside of Washington D.C., which is like 4 hours away. And I was like, well, I guess that's what I'm doing. So I got the tickets, and they all sold out within like an hour. And that was what I was going to do. I was going to see it a week from now, and then at the last second, a fan screening popped up in Charlotte and in Concord, which is a city right out of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is about 2 hours away from me. So I jumped on that and got to see it a week earlier. So that's what I did yesterday. The screening was like at 7:00. So I I heard other stories from people like Andy DeGenova from Holy Batcast. He saw it a few weeks ago and said, "Oh, I was there 4 hours early, and I wasn't the first person in line." So, and I've been to other early screenings like that. I got to see Justice League 2017 at an early screening, and I got there maybe half an hour before, and the line was just gigantic. And they were telling us at the time, "Oh, you might not get in." And we did, but we were at the second row of the theater.
Yeah.
Doing this.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that for the Flash. So I showed up to the theater maybe 3 hours early. I was like the second person there before they even started forming where the line was going to be, and I called the theater like a day in advance asking like, people are going to be there. There's going to be a line, right? And they were like, "Oh yeah." And then there wasn't. But it all worked out, and they eventually made the line, and I got in, and I was able to game the system and get concessions delivered to my seat, even though like the app didn't have the theater listed because it's an unlisted screening. So I just got it for another screening, and in the comments I was like, "Deliver it to this other theater." With the other seat, and it totally worked. So I was excited about that. So and then actually ended up filling 2 theaters at this AMC Concord Mills. So I was a little worried that maybe about 2 hours before there was already like 60 people in line, but they filled up two of the screenings with people. So it was very full, and so the audience seemed to have a really good time with it. And it was definitely a fun way to see the movie for the first time with a whole bunch of people that clearly wanted to be there to experience it as well.
I went to the press screening. It's Dallas press screening. It was in Addison at an AMC, and it was when I first contacted the PR firm here that takes care of all Warner Brothers screenings. I was asking, any information about the Flash, and first she told me, she said it's going to be the week of the 12th, and I was like, really? I mean, you have all these fan screenings, and it's almost become a moot point. And they're doing a big IMAX when the IMAX fan screenings is on the 12th, and I'm like, almost right. So I nabbed tickets for that because Joanne Hyde, who reviews films for us, Batman on Film, she's in Denver, and theirs is the 13th. Their screening is the 13th, and I'm like, so usually they take place the same date, around the country, and I'm like, well, I might as well just go to the IMAX screening because
you get the better.
I mean, and version, I get to see it beforehand, But I did that, so I nabbed tickets, and then they emailed me. I mean, right after that, basically, they emailed me back and said, "Okay, it's going to be the 5th. We're doing it, a week early." So it was Monday night. So I went down there. We went early and hung out because it's kind of like an entertainment area, and me and the announcer, and we walked over there, and there's this huge line, and I'm like, "Oh wow! I didn't know there was going to be a fan screening too." So my first thought was, okay, are they screening with press and because I've been to those where
everyone that I've been to is like the theater's full, and then they have like the two sections in the middle for like reserved for press. I actually got to see John Wick 4 2 weeks early, which was a crazy fun experience. And that's how they had it set up. But I got in, like, they had press, but for that one I also won. They had like the general fan tickets, but then they had like a social media fan thing, and I got the harder one to get. And so I got like a John Wick coin and stuff, and got on a VIP list. So I got to sit in the press section for that. Cool. So that's how these Flash screens were set up for us too.
So they were actually they did two. They screened it on 2 theaters at the same time. So one was all press. And and so that was like maybe a third full, but just spread out all through, so there was, and then I'm quite sure that the other one filled up completely because I saw that line, that line was long.
Like people showed up, and there weren't people showing up in costumes, but there was every third person had a DC related shirt on or something like that.
Yeah. And so because like it was started at 7, so we stayed at the restaurant bar until like 6:30 because it was just like basically across, just right next to it, and walked over there.
Yeah.
And so they still hadn't let the big general crowd in. And anyway, got in. They had 2 screenings. Maybe they did three theaters. I don't know because that line was long. So got in, wore my Batman on Film 25 t-shirt. Rachel had hers on.
I wore mine too.
Yeah, got in there. And so, I did, my review was up on Batman on Film. If you haven't read it, check it out. I did a reaction video afterwards. I was hyped up for this film, and it kind of goes against, I'm not a big Batman with superpowered beings person, in team up movies. No, but the return of Michael Keaton just superseded all of that. Just threw it out. That part of my Batman sensibilities away because I just wanted to see Michael Keaton as Batman again. And so I was hyped up for the film. And then of course you hear since CinemaCon, how good it is, and it's one of the very best comic book films ever. And
it's a strange feeling to have like Warner Brothers be so confident in a DC movie like this. We haven't seen that, it feels, since Man of Steel, Dark Knight Rises, in terms of how these films roll. Like, ever since BVS came out, it was like,
they were really hyped for Man of Steel. I lived it. They were,
Joker, that's kind of is a
reaction. But probably going back to like Dark Knight trilogy, really, to be honest. So after seeing it, there's a little bit of part of me, I almost wrote it in the review that to temper your expectations a little bit, because I think some of the proclamations were really hyperbolic. I wouldn't say it's one of the greatest superhero films of all time. If you take DC films, you take out all solo Batman stuff, it's in my top 5.
So I know, and that's what I wanted to not necessarily fight you on, but wanted to just try to. We were texting about this last night before my screening. I'm like, how can that's interesting because it's hard to. I get what you're saying now that I've seen the movie. It's hard to describe that, where you can say like, well, it's not one of the greatest DC movies of all time. It's good, but also it's in the top 5. It's like, how do those two things actually, like, how does that compute? Because you just like, if you don't count Batman, it's like number 2 behind Superman the movie. So I'm like, well, that means it's really good, right? And
it's really good. Yes, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. Now I would say there's a big difference on how much I like Superman the movie to the Flash and the rest of them, because
I see there's a big gap.
And that's because Superman the movies, I was 13 when that came out, and it was the first big time superhero movie I ever saw, and it was like the first one really since ever.
I got to and that movie is still so special. I got to take my kid to go see Superman the movie at the Alamo Drafthouse here last year, and I didn't know how she was going to take it, and it's a long movie, and it's it's its own thing, and every time we go to the theater, she's like, "Oh, this is where we saw the real Superman movie," and she just it connected with her too, and it's like that movie is so special, and I seeing all these reactions, and I don't want to name names here, but seeing some of the social media reactions online, I'm like, man, I wish I could live in the world where I'm one of these people that comes out and it's like, okay, here's the ranking, it's top 2, like it's one of the best movies ever made. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not that person anymore. Even with the Batman, like it's been over a year since the Batman came out, and I'm still like, I don't really know where it ranks. I need to live with the movie for a while. And I feel like this Flash movie, I don't know, people were texting me last night like, okay, what'd you think? Where do you rank it? And I'm like, I don't know I don't know how people are going to, I don't know how people are going to take this movie, to be honest. You know, I don't even know. I thought it was really good, but I can see why some people are going to love it. I see why some people are going to have a giant, what the hell, you know? I don't know how the general audience is going to take this movie, because now that the reviews are coming out, the tomato meter's good, like really good. But you're also starting to get some like 2-star reviews and C minuses, and what, people were so stupid, like how could they say that? Like, so we're starting to get like the wide, you know, gap on opinions. So I would urge people who are excited to do what you said. Temper your expectations. Don't read anything other than listen to this podcast, and then go see it, and and then we'll reconvene.
So you if you're talking just DC movies, and you take out all of the Batman, you know, solo Batman films, because if I included the solo Batman films, and even if I included some Marvel stuff, Spider-Man, Amazing, you know, Spider-Man 2, there's, you know, there's some Marvel, Logan, so there's some Marvel things that even I would inject, and maybe even over the Flash. Certainly,
I can see that.
You know, certainly, probably all 3 of the Dark Knight trilogy films. The Batman, for sure. The Batman's my favorite Batman movie. I mean, I've said that. It just is. That doesn't mean I don't love Batman 89. It doesn't mean I don't love the Dark Knight trilogy. You know,
I know. So, it's
you know how that goes
still,
with people.
It's still, it's still an embarrassment of riches that we're living in now. This movie is one of those like little minor miracles where it's like, well, I don't even know how this thing exists. You know, we got Michael Keaton back, and it's a Flash movie, and we've been waiting so long for a Flash movie. But after it was over, and as much as I loved it, I was still like, my mind went straight to like, man, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. Like, we're never going to get something that good again. You know, like how this movie and what it is and what it has to be and how it has to be positioned as like a reset for the universe and things like that. I'm like, man, this is great, because I'm glad this is the movie that did it, because that's built into the Flash as like a character, as a concept. He's really a good vehicle for that. But I'm like, man, when can we? And I know like Matt Reeves stuff is very, very close to that, but I'm like, man, we're never gonna. I feel like it's a tall order to get those singular vision movies that can that really grab the characters. And I mean, I don't know, it's hard to put in words, because this movie does a lot of that. But man, it made, still at the end of this, it made me still feel like, you know, Dark Knight trilogy is just very special. And
yes, absolutely,
it's just hard to reconcile with that.
It was a, you know, Batman 89, the Dark Knight trilogy, these were, you know, especially Dark Knight, they were cultural phenomenon. You know, I don't see this being, you know, that.
And this movie is coming out in a strange time, and with the, you know, the writer's strike, and there's a lot of good movies out right now. It's kind of like a lot of the, and despite there being like, you know, the writer's strike and content and all this, like, you know, when Batman 89 came out, it was easier for it to be like, movies were movies, you know. Now we have like, and when the Dark Knight came out, you know, like streaming, and there wasn't nearly as much grabbing and the attention. And of course the DCU isn't the paragon of, you know, superhero media. You know, the MCU's kind of like here right now, but they'll get back. And while we were waiting in line, like this, you know, the animated Spider-Verse movie, I'm glad it's doing amazing. And multiple people showed up for that movie while I was in line for the Flash in costume. So you saw 2 or 3 Spider-Mans show up. As I left the theater last night late, I passed like a Burger King, and a family was getting out of their car with like 5 little kids dressed up like Spider-Man, probably getting the Spider-Man burger.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, and I'm out of the Flash, and I'm seeing people Spider-Mans walking around.
Yeah.
I'm like, this Spider-Man thing is a moment right now, and I don't feel like we're gonna see little Flashes and little Keaton Batmans walking around, you know. And the way that this movie has been delayed 1,000 times, and you got the Halloween costumes for Keaton's Batman like last Halloween, and Flash last Halloween, and I mean, it's strange. It's strange, and I'm worried that this movie, as good as it is, will be kind of a victim of like other things just taking the cultural focus and not doing as well as it really could have if it had a better position.
I will say, and I wrote this in the review, this part I didn't. I think it may have some legs. I think the rewatchability factor is very high for this film.
It is.
Because I want to see it again, because I know there's things that I missed. You know, there's a lot going on here. So we'll save Keaton for last. Keaton Batman.
Okay.
So, just in general, I'll just, you know, I thought the movie was really good. I would not put it in the great category, you know, not the category that's great, you know, under great. So if I'm trying to be clear here, but yeah, I really liked it. God, it's tough. It's tough. David Goyer even said once, you know, it's tough to make a movie about a guy who runs really fast, you know. And you know, because I grew up, that's really what the Flash did. He ran really fast, you know, and he'd like run around people and make a tornado, and you know, and they would capture them. But I love the whole time travel, alternate realities, universe, the whole thing. And I thought that Andy Muschietti did a heck of a job, and Christina Hodson, who wrote the script of, I mean, there's so much, it's hard. It had to be hard. So I give them to
crack the code on the story, because
yeah,
in this modern era of when this version of the movie, I mean, when the DCEU Flash started, you know, with the Famuyiwa and the Dungeons and Dragons got like this particular iteration has gone through like 3 or 4 or 5 different like things with Ezra Miller Flash, like different creative groups and different stories. So I'm glad this is the one that made it.
Yeah.
Because we get Keaton, we get like, I think we probably ended up with more substance, it feels, than before.
And you got to give props to the comic book guys who did Flashpoint, you know.
The
premise of Flashpoint is used in here, you know. It's not a straight up adaptation of Flashpoint,
right?
You know, the alternative Batman we see is not Thomas Wayne and all, you know, all that, but those guys, you know, the core aspect of, you know, Barry trying to fix things and save his mom, and you know, all that, that's there in the movie,
right? Uh-oh.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You were just incredibly still.
I
was worried.
I was just waiting. I thought you were coming in. So go ahead.
What do you want? My non-spoiler
just general take on the film.
It's very enjoyable. It's one of those movies, like the concept is it's definitely one of those crazy high concept movies, and I feel like, you know, my girlfriend is very new to DC, and we've really been trying to like, okay, well, what do you need to watch before this? And we've watched Batman 89, and I'm like, okay, well, ideally you would watch like Batman 89 and Batman Returns and Man of Steel, maybe BVS, you know, Justice League, and then the Flash, you know. But I think you could go into this and just kind of get it, because they do try to, their scenes, the way they set things up, they try to smartly give you the info you need watching all the stuff beforehand is obviously going to enhance the experience. But clearly, most people that watch this show have just seen everything. I was never the biggest fan of Ezra Miller Flash interpretation. You know, and I hate saying what I'm about to say, but it's like, I just want to see the comic book Flash on the screen, which really kind of for my generation means like, I want to see animated Justice League Flash on the screen. I want to see like Barry Allen in the I want to see something closer to like the TV show, you know. But this movie does as good as it could with the slightly wonky setup that led into it from Zack Snyder's DCEU, where you got the Flash and he's already the Flash and you don't see the origin, and Iris West, oh, she's there, she's not, like, and they address that in this version. And even some of the reviews are like, oh yeah, like this movie kind of makes the Snyder Justice League the canon version based off of what they're saying in it with some of the characters. Like, boy, I hope you watched the Snyder cut, because when Iris West shows up in this, you're like, oh, they're talking about scenes from the Snyder cut. Anyway, if you didn't already like Ezra Miller's Flash, I don't think this movie's going to change your mind. And in fact, I appreciated the fact that this movie kind of plays into, they even hype up the quality, the outer, you know, the social awkwardness. And thinking about it more, I kind of appreciated that setup, because I was like, oh, you know, one of the only other giant socially awkward DC hero interpretations that was really front and center to me is Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne and Batman. Yeah. So it's actually a really interesting pairing. Beyond, you know, just the way they portray the characters on top of these similarities, and the moments that you get between Keaton and either Barry, both Barrys, I thought was just really well done. And there's so much to this film where I'm like, oh, I wanted more of that. I wanted more of the character interactions. I wanted more of this. I have plenty of nitpicks, plenty of, well, there should have been more Supergirl, or there should have been more of this or more of that. And why didn't they do this? Like, they set this up and then didn't pay it off, or they could have done this entire scene differently and that would have been better. Like, I have a bunch of those. But overall, like, the concept and the tone is great. Like, people weren't lying about the Back to the Future like vibes. Even the score a lot of times tries to, it felt to me like it was trying to evoke that like weird quirky time thing. And I think the most surprising thing to me coming out of it was the film's sense of humor and use of humor is so unlike any other DC film. And I guess I attribute that to Muschietti's direction. You know, when you watch like the Suicide Squad, you're like, oh, that's a James Gunn movie. And when you watch you know, any of Snyder movies, it's obvious, oh, that's a Zack Snyder movie. And not that this feels like It or something like that, but Muschietti's It, but there you could tell like this is a very, like, there's a whole bunch of interesting humor type moments here, and it works. Yes, but it's one of those things where you have to kind of be down with that. And that part probably was the most surprising thing to me. So much so that, and the, like, this is a PG-13 movie, y'all. Like, I was very excited to be able to, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take my kid to go, my 5-year-old to go see this on Father's Day weekend and stuff. And after seeing it early, I'm like, well, I hate to say it, but I think I need to change my plans, because it's not, and I hate being able to be like, sorry, kid, we can't go see the Flash together. We can't go see Michael Keaton's Batman together, but I'm just gonna have to wait on this one because of the language and the humor and that kind of stuff. So that kind of feels bad. It feels like a weird repetition. You know, we've got a lot of friends here, like talked to like Justin Kowalski, and he's got his classic story about, you know, missing Batman 89 in the theater, and I feel like that's going to unfortunately repeat itself here. I was excited to take my kid to see it, but I don't think I'm going to now. So that feels bad. That's a feel bad for me. But what?
I was thinking, I'm taking my boys next Wednesday.
Yeah.
But they're 26 and 21
it's perfect
years
for
old.
them.
Yeah. So yeah.
Like I can't take a 5-year-old. Like if she was like 12.
Because I've been there back, you know, hell, when Batman Begins came out, you know. Jake was 4, you know. So, you know, I've been there. That's
and she's seen 89 and Returns like 1,000 times. She's seen the Burton Schumacher ones 1,000 times at this point. But and I can, like, you know, okay, don't look at Catwoman scratch the guy in the face. But like there's stuff in this movie where I'm like, okay, I can't do that. So
to speak to Ezra Miller and their performance, he's good. He's really good. And I never liked that take.
Right. You know, that's what I was saying.
Take, and really Ezra Miller as Barry. I and not to be that guy also. I mean, I see the Flash, because I criticize people, don't judge casting and blah blah blah, and you know, and all that.
But they play into it. Like it's not just because sometimes you'll see these movies and you'll be like, oh, this actor is in a completely different movie than the rest of the movie. This is one of those cases where, and to Ezra Miller's credit and the filmmaker's credit, like that has been consistent with this version of the Flash. But this is obviously his time to shine. The Flash's time to shine. And although it's not, this is a new iteration, a new take, a very particular take, but it's a very particular take on the character, just like Keaton's Batman is a very particular take on Bruce Wayne and Batman. So I do appreciate it on that level. And it was executed very well in this film. And I really loved how you have the two Barrys, because the younger version, like the 20-year-old version and the in the 30-year-old version or whatever, they do have a dialogue with each other, and it kind of makes like one helps the other kind of thing, and they are able to, like, man, I get why people don't like me, you know. They actually address that in the movie, and it's I appreciated that.
I thought it was seamless, the two Barrys, just seamless. It's like literally they were, you know, there were twins on there or something, you know. It was and I felt for Barry with his mother. You know, I had a emotional connection to him, which I never had before. And of course, you know, full disclosure, I don't like BVS. I don't like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I didn't like, you know, the whole take of that. So there could have been a little bit of, you know, that filtering down into, I just, you know, but on the other hand, I like Wonder Woman, and I thought Momoa was great as Aquaman, but that's a whole different conversation. But but I got, this is the first time I really enjoyed him or them in the film. And really that works because, you know, there's the two Barrys, maybe 3, I don't know, you know, never know, but maybe 4. So, but I felt for him, Barry, you know, the character in the movie a lot. So almost, you know, I wrote on Facebook, just my regular Facebook, like, hey, if you're looking for a movie, go see Father's Day, you know, go check out The Flash. It's really good, especially if you're my vintage and, you know, you want to see Michael Keaton as Batman. And I said, maybe this would have been worked better on Mother's Day, you know, it would have been more of appropriate release. But I said, you'll get it when you see the So for sure. So I like I said, I had a connection with him, the character of Barry, and I felt I was pulling for him. I felt bad for him and all that, and especially that there's that the scene toward the end where he's got to
really well done.
He makes a big decision, to try to
and
fix
even
everything.
Just that third act, man. The marketing really, like, I'm like, okay, have we seen like all this movie and everything? But as the movie kept going, I was like, well, how is it going to end? What is going to happen? How is it going to put things? How's it going to leave things? So that part was unexpected. The way that played out.
It was just like I said in my review, I feel like I'm an expert, or I should be well versed in time travel with all the time travel movies, I've seen on TV and, on the big screen, and, how sometimes, they kind of play into sometimes things are going to happen no matter what you do, it's just meant to be that way. And, there's also the aspect of once you jack with the past and change it, can you ever really get things back to the way they were exactly? That's I think that's part that's in there a little bit. So, and I did like, and I'm not going to give away the joke, but speaking of Back to the Future, just keep Back to the Future in your mind.
For sure.
When you go see this movie, not because this is a time travel, changing things in the past movie, you'll get it when you see it. It was really, I thought it was very clever, very clever.
Yeah. I love that the Back to the Future is like the modern cornerstone for time travel movies. Like, I guess back in the day, it'll be like, oh, it's like H.G. Wells, the Time Machine or whatever. But like, this movie uses it. Avengers, Endgame uses it, just to kind of set up what's going on. But the way that they do it in this is a different thing, and it fits, like the cultural touchstone, like fits. Being able to talk about a movie in another movie, or multiple movies for that matter. Like, it works here. It works for this version.
Okay, so let's talk about Supergirl, Sasha Calle, Supergirl. In my review, I thought that she was really good of what she had. Yes. Because it's not as, even though it's like she's the third lead, it's not as a big of a role in the whole grand scheme of the film as you would believe, based on marketing and advertisement.
Yes.
And I get it. I get why. I totally get, it makes sense in the context of the film where she's in it at first, and then, and when we last see her, it makes sense, right? But it's not as big as you would expect.
Right. I was impressed. I really enjoyed her performance and the way the character was handled, and the way that they took, again, like the way that they took the kind of this general idea and setup of it from Flashpoint, and figured out how to
Superman, like, absolutely
meld it in here, and that really worked for me. It is kind of one of those like thankless roles, if that makes sense, because like she doesn't have from what's actually in the movie, it's more like she's there. The things that she does is it serves a purpose in like what drives the story forward, and she has to do X, Y, and Z. You don't
really get to know her.
Yeah, it doesn't give her much of a chance to really have a lot of character development.
Who she is, from the dialogue, who she is, where she's from, why she's there. She's good. Right. That's about.
But I wanted more. I wanted more. I wanted more for sure. And some of the, I don't know, I don't want to call it hyperbole. Some of the people that have been saying like, like she's got to be, she's got to be in the Supergirl movie and all this stuff. Like she's gonna be in a million. Like, I don't know. Like, she could be, she couldn't be. I don't want to say like the door's open for them to use her again, or this version of the character again, because it's a multiverse movie. You can do whatever you want. Same thing with Keaton, you know.
Yeah.
Please, more Keaton. Why would you not do more Keaton? He's there. But yeah, she was good, but I could have used more. And I guess that's really my overall thing for the whole movie. As long as the movie is, I'm like, man, they could have had less of this and more of that. And there's, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but I can see why they had tough choices to make. And again, I hate like going back to set photos, but I'm like, hey, there was that set photo of Supergirl that was like at this location, and that wasn't in the movie or and stuff like that. I'm like, there's clearly more stuff that and I hope we get to see it, you know, at least on the
extended
the video
cut
release.
Of the Flash would be great at some point.
I would eat that up. I would love if we had more, because there was more scenes, alternate scenes. Like I'm sure that there's a lot. And Muschietti's already talked about a lot of that stuff. Oh, there was this scene that we cut, or that thing that was fleshed out more, or that we had to you know, get rid of.
That's got to be tough for filmmakers, because that's kind of like their baby, you know.
Yeah, and it's not always up to them, you know, especially for a film like this that has to tee up other things. And
unless you're Nolan, you know, unless you're Nolan or unless you're Nolan,
because they got to go the one writer's strike and be like, no Justice League Mortal.
Yeah.
They cancel other movies too.
I was happy to see going back to Batman, but not the Batman that I want to talk about the most here. But I was happy that I think Ben Affleck did indeed get his cool way to segue out of the role as Batman. And I totally get why he says this was, you know, this is the best. I finally figured out the character. This is the best shit I've done as Batman ever, was in this. And in this extended cameo. I get it, you know. He was very Batmanish, you know?
Yeah.
Very heroic Batmanish.
It's like Brave and the Bold. It's as close as you could get to like a modern live action Brave and the Bold Batman that's done everything and seen everything, but it's still Batman at the end of the day. You know, I feel it's like this is probably what George Clooney's Batman and Robin Batman was trying to be, I guess, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I've reconciled stuff. I'm still Batman, but I'll never get past, like, I'm still going to be Batman forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love some of the other cameos we got from at that beginning sequence from other actors. Like, yeah, it was fun to be in that Justice League world, and that was a really fun thing, because a lot of times you see these movies, you're like, oh, where's the Justice League, you know? Why don't we get to see it, you know? In this movie you kind of get some of that, and it's worked into the story, and I enjoyed that part of it quite a bit, because it does flow pretty nicely into the setup for what this movie, the story of this movie.
He Affleck got a really good scene as Bruce Wayne when he's talking to Barry. You know, I think the line, you know, our scars make us who we are, is great. It's a great line. You just didn't see, you never really saw that Bruce Wayne in any of his prior performances in those films. And you know, Batman, that was just a you know, kick-ass big spectacle action scene. It's all, you know, as Batman. So so I enjoy, I'm happy for him. It was cool. Despite, you know, I'm not a big fan of that Batman costume.
That was a terrible Batman costume. I'm sorry.
It's not because of it's not really because of the bluish gray that it is. It's kind of just, it was just way too busy and stuff on there. It was
busy. It felt
didn't make sense.
Like, I don't know. Like, I love that it's like the blue and gray, but man, it just not my favorite, you know?
Yeah. It was so I did pass on those McFarlane action figure, okay.
No, I got the you know, my screening was in it was in the biggest mall I've ever been in my life, and I went to a Books A Million, and they had like the biggest multi McFarlane section I've ever seen, with like actually everything in stock. Yeah, and they and they had like all of the Multiverse Keaton statues. They had like 4 or 5 of them. So I'm like, okay. So I finally bought one, and they had all the Flash figures, and they had Keaton's Batman figure and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, finally. Like I've got the Keaton figure on pre-order, but I wasn't going to get the statue until Pete Vera started sending me photos. He's like, you want it. You want this. I'm like, okay, it looks good. I'll wait until I see it if I ever see it in person. And then I did, and so I've got it, and I had to plug it into the screening with me and all that. But yeah, it was pretty nice. Pretty nice.
I held off buying that just because I know that the Pattinson statue from McFarlane, I got it immediately, and then now you can get them in their, half the price, whatever. So I'm thinking,
oh sure.
I'm thinking, okay, if I just hold off on this Keaton statue, maybe
I held off on the main Keaton figure, and then it was impossible to find.
It is.
Until like just last week. Thank God for Pete Vera, because he was like, oh, you can pre-order it on Best Buy now. And so I got 2. So I can, after this, I can go, or sometime later today, I can go pick them up from Best Buy. So
I'm going to check see how much the stock of that, the availability of those are. If it's like, there's still a lot available, then I'm gonna gamble and hold off and see if I can get it. And I'm not cheap. I'm just saying, plus
I know it's a toy hunt. Yeah. Did you get the 2 Keaton Pops?
Yes.
Okay, the damaged one, the Walmart damaged one. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that one. That one I gotta find, but I got I
just found that one the other day.
I got the cowless, Keaton.
Oh,
and
I haven't seen that one.
I've got the well, hell, hold on. I got the Batwing.
Oh yeah,
Batwing.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
And then
nice. See, that looks pretty Keaton-esque. You got the maskless one. Yeah.
So
yeah,
let's put him here.
Pretty nice.
All right now. Right, you can go over here. We can see him. There you go.
Nice.
I'm about to talk about you. So all right. So, and I got the 2 McFarlane,
the
figures.
maskless McFarlane. Yeah.
All right. And I got the, what is it? Spin Master Batmobile, which is really good.
Ooh, the Spin Master one. Yeah.
Got the Spin Master one. Nice. Turning this into talking about Batman collectibles, toys. But that's okay. Hey. Keaton's Batman. It was something, never thought we'd see Keaton's Batman again after, just didn't, and then it happens, and we've known for a while now, since how long now? It's been 2-3 years since that came out,
Yeah.
So I feel like, because people keep asking, I don't know why they would say this. Do they poke fun of Keaton's Batman? Is it come off goofy? And they're all. I'm sure they're being very protective of this. How he's portrayed.
Yeah.
And for one, I don't think Keaton would have done it unless it was
Keaton approved.
He was engaged in.
Yeah.
And Keaton approved. And even Andy Muschietti talked about how he met with Keaton before and took all his input in how he wanted to portray the character. And he nailed it. It was like, I mean, it was like he didn't miss a beat in 30 plus years, and I felt it was more 89 ish than Batman Returns. And I don't say that to slight Batman Returns, because it's not, much as I love Keaton, I'm not a huge fan of Batman Returns, but I thought it had more of the 89.
It had vibe. It had more of a hat tip to 89, I guess, than Returns, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. Doesn't mean Returns never happened.
No.
Like,
no. Yeah. So it was.
I mean, the Return suits in the movie, right? Like,
yes,
Returns.
Absolutely.
Return suits there.
I like how I'm one who I like Batman Beyond, where Batman, I like when Bruce Wayne is old and there's what's he do next?
History.
Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that. Love.
Yeah.
And to
Batman
see him
at the end of his career, or
and here he is, that he's I'm sure he's playing his age. He's probably 70-ish, late 60s,
early 70.
Yeah. And he's, at Wayne Manor and just a recluse. He's got a long beard and long hair. And it seems like in one way he is okay with having given up Batman, and he says why, in the movie. You think, is that a spoiler or not? Do you mean to hold?
I would think it's a spoiler.
Okay.
I would let people experience that in the movie.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I was thinking. I just want to double check. So it's,
I think I even saw an article that said there was even a longer version of that, like a longer scene where he explains more about what happened after and why and all that.
Yeah. So he seems resigned to it. But there's also a little bit later on in the film, he probably misses being Batman a little bit,
and this is just coming to me, like this whole, like, if you just look at Batman, that within this movie, you go for all the Batmans you get in this movie, you look at Keaton's Batman and Affleck's Batman. The movie actually does a really good job of trying to repeat, like, do these like time echo kind of things of like, oh, Batman does these things in every multiverse. And then in a way, it kind of speaks to like the Dark Knight Rises Batman, where in Dark Knight Rises, you get like what happens to Bruce Wayne when there is no Batman? And of course, the way it's done in that movie is different than this one, but they kind of speak to each other, what place does Bruce Wayne have when Batman's not needed? And you see
absolutely.
And you see the Keaton version of that in this. And I think, and they come into a very similar they get into a similar place. Not that it's like a retread, but it's like a comic book kind of thing, where a comic book, different stories can explore similar themes differently, with the same character. And you kind of get that with Keaton's Batman in this, which is really fascinating, which is really making me want to see the movie again.
It does because he talks to the Barrys. And they fill him in on what they're doing, what's going on. And, and it's also, for me, it was cool that they really didn't jack with that universe as it was established, too much in terms of, pretty much until the events of the Flash, Batman was,
you could fill in the, you could
was the only superhero there was.
Yeah. It could be, and it leaves it up to the viewer too to decide, like, okay, well, this universe could be the Burton universe up until there, or those movies could also be their own thing, or a version of those movies.
Yeah,
a version of those movies happen.
Yeah. Absolutely, because I wrote, I can go back to review, but
I saw that in your review.
There were things in my mind spinning, is like, this could be what happened after Batman Returns, and or it could be just this slightly different version of that Batman in a different world,
because it's not like Batman Forever happened, it's not like you see a Robin costume in the Batcave,
so there's all kind of, this is a whole different podcast, really, because I have so many thoughts about this and the multiverse thing and everything and all that, and then you throw in with the Elseworlds banner at Warner Brothers, so I'm gonna keep that idea, because I want to talk about that, but
absolutely.
And he gave him, for what they tell him, and and they just really, it's like, Barry, the older Barry's like, Batman will figure it out. He always figures things out, and he'll tell us what to do. And then Keaton hears their story, and he's even like thinking, there's a little bit of like, really, this is what the hell are you talking about here? This is just making me,
yeah.
And then
it's crazy to get like Keaton's Batman being someone that is not fazed by, gods and aliens, and I was curious on how that would play at, like, how that would come across on screen. But it really worked. Like, it worked for me.
Because
like,
he's really
plays it.
He's just now encountering this in his world, and he's 70 years old, or give or take,
right.
But it also, from what they tell him, he realizes Batman needs to come back again.
Yeah.
Batman needs to return.
Yes.
And I like how all that plays out, all of it. And it's I mean, he goes and looks at all his costumes and all his bat suits, and he's where Keaton with he's thinking, he's thinking.
And it was kind of like Batman Beyond, where he wasn't Batman. He's like, well, I'll let the kids use the stuff, and maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
kind of like a grumpy, like it's like, get out of here, but I don't know. And then eventually he's like, okay, I'll join in, So it was like kind of a fun way that plays out too.
Yeah. Did you see his introduction for the first time in the movie, or did you see the clip, that Fandango clip?
I did not watch the clip.
Yeah. So it was probably, it was, I can't help myself, in some cases, especially with that Keaton, but I can imagine it would have been a little bit cooler, if you will, not temperature wise, more cool, if I hadn't seen it. I knew that you knew a scene like that was coming. I mean, we've seen the trailers with, I'm Batman, and you need some help, but
you want to get nuts. Like, I feel like they really, the marketing, I guess the answer is don't watch the trailers, but how can you watch the major trailers? I feel like the major trailers kind of gave away, like, not gave away, but like ruined a little bit too many of those moments. They could have just stuck with one. Just do the I'm Batman and leave it there. Because I was very curious. I think I've been, even in a previous social, I was like, oh, maybe surely they don't repeat that same, like, zoom in on Keaton and have him say the line, but they do. That's what's in the movie, but it was in different scenes. It wasn't the same scene. That's what I was worried about. I'm like, this looks like the same scene. So
even though I was in a press only screening, people clapped when that scene happened. They did, and cheered. I did. Yes. I was like, So, but I'm trying to think, because I don't want to give too much away, but he comes back, and then, even in that, the final third of the film, and there's the big action piece with, there's Zod, and really, the Zod thing it's just repeating what, and there's no knock on Michael Shannon, but it's just because that's what it needed to be. It needed,
he's just there as part of
he's there for the same exact
the conflict
reason, he was in Man of Steel. It's just but it's a flip, because the reality, the world is different,
it's classic Back to the Future. It's like, oh no, we were back at this point in time, but things are different. How do we get things to play out where the universe doesn't get destroyed?
And it's just even with him, with looting Kryptonian ships and shooting at them, and all of this real, Supergirl and on the flashes, and I never, even though that's like not my thing, I was never once going, oh, now it's ruined for me, that never. I was like, hell yeah, so I loved it. Loved the whole thing.
I'm guessing it's intentional that they kept Keaton's Batman out of the Burton verse as much as possible. Like, it's not like they go to Gotham Anton First Gotham.
Yeah.
And it's like he's past that. Like Gotham's not that anymore, but we don't get to see it. So it kind of works in this context of the film where it's like a next chapter for this Batman, and they get him in other situations where they don't, so it doesn't stomp on it keeps Batman 89 and Batman Returns special. It keeps those their own thing, but you get to tell a new story with it.
They nailed Wayne Manor,
yeah,
inside
in the Batcave.
It's so Batman 89.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Batcave. Yes.
Yeah. And
I know there's little things that I've missed when you're in Wayne Manor that I'll pick up, because I picked up some, and I know there's more,
Yeah, like even you could pause in the trailers and be like, oh, there's that little weird machine in the Batcave. Oh, and it's the same one that's in 89. And I just love the way that some of the things in Wayne Manor work. Of course, in 89, where you see how some of the, or in Returns, where you see like, oh, you've got the Iron Maiden that opens up and this and that, and you see newer, different versions of that in Wayne Manor in this movie, but it's not. So I enjoy seeing new versions of that. in this Wayne Manor.
We'll finish up here. We won't give anything away, of course, obviously. I think people enjoy the cameos from DC live action, DC past. We were talking before we started recording here. I said, now, the nitpicky in me is like, well, you did this for this long, but couldn't you have, threw in that or this? And everyone will have their own preferences, everyone, and they'll be different. I get, it had to be tough to what they went with, So, but
not to outright spoil
I think people they'll like it, and they'll wish there was more at the same time.
Yeah, it's the rocky road of doing what they did, for sure.
Yes,
and there's been some articles that have said things like, or that have confirmed, like, oh, it's confirmed X and Y cameos not in the movie, and then I saw the movie and I'm like, they could have put that cameo. There's no reason that cameo couldn't have been in the movie. Zero reason. It would have been just fine, and they should have done that. So it is that slippery slope of, I loved what they did, but they could have done more, or taken that out and put more of that in, or more of this and less of that.
I found myself doing
it's a mixed bag of like,
it is, because once you go there, you're not going to make you're going to make people
especially
happy, but you're going to make them not happy at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, especially when you see a movie like this and it really feels like, well, this is the one shot they had to do that. If they can't just do this again in another movie, because the impact will be lessened, or it feels like this is like a once in a generation opportunity for them to have done what they did, and they pulled off a crazy amount of cool stuff in it that I thought I would never see, and I'm glad I saw, and I'm glad it was in it. But they could have done more, or took some things out.
And that's being a fan and being a little bit totally. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Because you could say that to somebody that's not a super fan of this stuff and be like, huh? Like, I don't know.
Like Rachel didn't even,
I'm gonna have to.
She just thought it was, it was cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, like, when I see this with my girlfriend,
there was one other cameo she had no clue what it was and why, and I had to explain.
You'll have to tell me after what that was.
You can figure it out, and the cameo that
I don't know
that ever existed.
I'll
tell you afterwards. I'll tell you afterwards. Yeah. So so what do you think about how the film, without giving away anything, and not that scene, but the one that was blurred out, people have seen that, but how the movie ended in general, where it left everything.
I had to, like, on the drive home, I had to keep going, like, wait, I had to keep reminding myself, like, wait, how did it end? What? what state was the world left in? What did they say? What? Oh, okay. Because when things were wrapping up, I kept thinking, oh, it's time travel, it's this, it's that. Like, oh, that's okay that this happened or that happened because they'll fix it, just like Barry. Oh, we can fix it. And then the movie kind of wraps up, and then you have to, your mind catches up with it, and you're like, oh, okay. So I'm kind of grappling with that part of it right now, where I'm like, okay, this is how they left the universe. Okay. I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm curious. It's they really kind of did have their cake and eat it too, where they can kind of do whatever they want now and just be like, oh, that was where the Flash reset stuff. Like they do enough. They don't do they do just enough to. It's not like Lord of the Rings where there's like 10 endings to show like this is where everything has ended up, and here's James Gunn's Superman, and here's whatever. It's like, well, I mean, there's some things that will definitely make you start questioning, like, oh, what's happened, but it's nothing that any future film can't address in their own way or not, which is kind of a cool,
exactly. Yeah,
like they don't have to do anything. They could leave it there. It could be a springboard for new stuff, or new stuff could completely ignore it and it would be just fine,
Yeah.
So it's cool.
I'll just go back to, once you mess with the past, is it ever really going to be the same as it originally was?
I was jazzed. I was excited.
So and that last scene was it was cool.
It was cool. I clapped.
It was funny.
My theater loved it.
Yeah, and I thought Ezra Miller was really, really good in that scene. And now two things I want to note. And one of them speaks to you, what you said, and I said this in the review, is that it's kind of where it's homage to all of DC live action, where all of it happened and all of it exists somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gone,
Yeah.
Including, the DCEU.
Yes.
And all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
perfect.
The fans of that, I don't want to name them here, but they should appreciate that that piece of DC on film history is really is spotlighted and championed, in the beginning, right?
I agree.
I
agree, and it makes me appreciate the hell out of what has transpired. It's one of those things where this movie acknowledges how messy being a superhero can be, and how messy like this universe can get. The way Keaton explains it, not to spoil the scene, but the way Keaton explains it in the movie is like a perfect analogy for like what has led up to this. But and it's like, but you got to be okay with it, and you can't change it, and all this kind of stuff. So it, in a really meta way, which is great for the Flash, it makes me appreciate what's come before even more. And so now I can kind of, I'm excited now to kind of rewatch some of this stuff and be like, okay, like we have, especially moving forward, like you go from Batman 89 all the way to now, and you can congeal it together, and it's storytelling, and it's these characters, and it's a lot of why we love these characters and explore, our own lives and stuff. It really makes me excited for DC, like in general, to me, as a storytelling.
I say it again. Yeah. To me, all of it is still there somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you want to enter, if you want to enter that universe, go grab your Blu-ray and put it in and watch. Subscribe
to Max.
Or exactly. We're not that's a
Stream
free
on
plug.
Max.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Max, so yes, okay. So I have so much more to talk about with this film, but I have to really go into spoilers. So
yeah,
we're gonna end it here. There is a final post-credit scene.
Yes.
So I don't know. I was like, okay, I really didn't have to be in there, but whatever. If you like that,
and that was my theater's reaction too. They're like, huh.
I mean,
and I'm like, are they going to change it again before next week? I know this was
you're
supposed to be the
not
final
going
cut,
to miss
but I'm
anything
like,
if you if you get out when they start the credits. But I will say that there was this old crusty reviewer next to me. There was a seat between us, and and I guess another one came by that he knew, and he goes, one guy was still sitting down, and he's like, he goes, "You're leaving?" He said, "Well, I'm gonna see if there's one of those post-credit scenes." And the guy that was leaving going, there's not one. This is DC. This is not Marvel. This is not MCU. And I said, there's a post-credit scene. And they both stood there and waited until they saw it. And then anyway, so I'm sure, and I know we'll address the Flash in more detail on probably 2 or 3 more podcasts. I'm sure there'll be another one for sure on the I'm gonna do one with Lauer on the Social Hour. I know that all the guys will get on the various shows to talk about it. So and and Ryan will be back. We're gonna talk about spoilers at some point. So because that's so much more. And then you're going to get me on that show about the multiverse and Elseworlds. That's a whole different tangent. You made Elseworlds for a reason, James Gunn and Peter Safran. You okay?
Yeah, they would be. And I feel like it's, you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. It's like, you just got Keaton back. Come on, guys. But like, better use him while he's doing Keaton Renaissance, where he's doing this. He's doing Beetlejuice 2. Like, come on, man. Come on, get him back.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's not going to matter that you've got Robert Pattinson in the Batman universe.
It already doesn't. He's just,
and
he
you've
just
got
saw him.
And you're going to have this Brave and the Bold Batman coming up at some point in the new DCU. No one cares. Just they'll go watch it, because it's Batman and it's Keaton. So, all right, Ryan, you got anything you want to plug?
Oh, just follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow my Super Mario Brothers the Movie Archive on Twitter at SMB Movie, and on the internet at smbmovie.com. Things are just nuts for us right now because the animated Illumination movie's out, and everybody's and it's the 30th anniversary. It was just 30th anniversary, May 28th. So got a brand new site update up with a lot of good article roundups, and we did a bunch of interviews for as representatives of the website for a bunch of different outlets, and so all those links and all those stories and retrospectives are up on our website right now at smbmovie.com.
Very cool. For me, just go to Batman on Film, batman-on-film.com. Celebrating our 25th anniversary. Yes, Brian, have I ever told you the story about how I started Batman on Film in 1998 on a web
TV? Yeah.
I don't know. I rarely tell that story. So this podcast and several other are part of the Batman Podcast Network. Just go to Batman on Film, find the logo, or just where it says podcast, you'll find the drop-down box. Check out all those shows. If you want to help support Batman on Film, these things don't pay. They don't pay for themselves. Okay, you do gotta maintain them. patreon.com, patreon.com/Batman on Film. There's cool, speaking of Batman 25, you can go to TeePublic, tpublic.com/Batman on Film. Get you one of those cool Batman 25 t-shirts like me and announcer Rachel wore, and even Ryan wore. Ryan wore the last time he was on the Social Hour.
I did.
Justin Kowalski came out with that awesome logo. Check that out. And that's all I got. Announcer Rachel will finish up here, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Batman on Film Social Hour, Jett's official BOF podcast and vlog. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only on Twitter, follow at the Batman on Film. For Jett and everyone at BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.